Alright guys, so what each of these represent, right? You typically on our website we have the 3 card spread, just a regular past, present, future, or it adjusts depending on the question really. But what I did was, because I wanted to do something different, a little bit more in depth perhaps, and something that's a little bit more easier to possibly understand as well. But I wanted to go ahead and take another approach at this 3 card reading spread, and I decided to add 2 parts, an internal portion and an external portion. The internal portion looks at your emotions, looks at your internal dialogue and things like that, how you felt in the moment, and then externally is showing the surroundings, the environment, and how it affects you, or how you affect it, right? So we're going to go ahead and go by the order of the past, present, future, and then we're going to go back around to kind of cover everything up, kind of scoop everything up together to make it one coherent story. So in the past year you had the moon. Let's just be straight up. The moon is one of those cards that you kind of hate coming up in any position. But I feel like the moon also showed a lot of fear, a lot of doubts and uncertainty. The moon is very notorious for having to push you to really utilize your intuition, to really force you to trust your intuition more so, because you may be in a situation where there's not a lot of clarity, things may be super confusing, and you kind of just have to go with what your heart's telling you, really allow your heart to lead you right now. So I feel like with the moon, you had to have a bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say self-control, but you wanted to be a bit more open at this time, because especially spiritually, because things were just not how they should have been, I feel like. For a lot of you guys, the moon could, especially in the past, could indicate that there was a Pisces that you guys were surrounding yourself with, or potentially a Cancer, but more importantly, that there was a lot of confusion internally and externally. There was not a lot to see. There was a lot of darkness. There was a lot of shadows, and I feel like the shadows, especially when you're in territory you're unfamiliar with, I do feel this has pretty much happened, right? You guys were put in a situation or environment you're not really familiar with. You had to really learn everything, and that is a process, right? It's not like the Fool, where it's more exciting and hey, you trust yourself, you go about it. This is a situation where you're not familiar with it, and you had to pretty much go on faith and go with what you knew and follow your intuition wholeheartedly. Because perhaps this new journey that you were on didn't really come with really clear instructions, and I don't think, obviously, whenever you start, right, it's not clear instructions anyway. You don't get clear instructions sometimes, but it doesn't really help that you weren't sure of what to do per se, of what to see, what to expect. Maybe you've even asked to, and you just didn't get some sort of information that's needed. Now presently you have the 9 of Wands. Now the 9 of Wands indicates here, indicates feeling exhausted and feeling very tired and beat down. Now, considering that the moon was in the past, I feel like you guys have been kind of going through it pretty badly. Jupiter is in your sign right now and going retrograde. So you've got a lot of stuff being expanded and really be looked at. It's like there's a huge magnifying glass on you as an individual, and there's just a huge magnifying glass. So with Uranus also being in your 7th house, you may be feeling exhausted and honestly kind of confused, right? Because there could be things that you just may hit your your relationship, and you're like, how the heck am I supposed to deal with this? And currently you're constantly putting in effort. You're really standing strong and tall, but it's really exhausting. And honestly, if it wasn't for you being so invested in the relationship or invested in the love situation that you're currently in, you wouldn't probably be in it, to be absolutely honest. You'd be kind of like, I don't think this is going to work out, to be absolutely fair. And which is completely understandable, considering that you had a serious major arcana episode here with the past, because you see here is 3 major arcanas. all of it in the past. So there's some serious stuff that happened here. But in the present, you guys are feeling exhausted, but you're not giving up. So that's like one of those things that's commendable, right? You're not giving up just yet. You're not really throwing in the towel. There's some things that still need to be hashed out, potentially just for yourself and the relationship and things like that. Now, in the future, you have the Eight of Pentacles. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done, but it's all about focusing on hardcore, concentrating on the obstacles at hand, concentrating on what needs to be fixed and what needs to be worked on. It's not like one of those, the Seven of Pentacles, where you're sitting there trying to figure out whether it's worth the time or not. I feel like you're at this point now, but you're not even at that point. I feel like you're very defensive, yes, but you're not at the point of where you're ready. You're going to throw in the towel because you don't know if it's worth the time. Yes, it's exhausting. Yes, you've been through a lot with this, but I don't feel like you're ready to throw in the towel yet. So the Eight of Pentacles is really like, just honestly, despite how tired and exhausted you are, you're really going to look closely at what work needs to be done in the relationship and begin fixing it. So I feel like, there's a confusing time in the past. You're currently exhausted because you've been really trying to go through this blind, because the moon, it doesn't provide any sort of clarity. The moon only illuminates so much, so what you saw possibly was exaggerated because, it's the moon. The moon doesn't really show what you should see, and it makes everything look really spooky. So you have situations where there was some vague stuff or something wasn't very specific. There's probably some bad communication between your partner and yourself, possibly. But ultimately, you guys, there's nothing to blame here. I feel like you guys just had a period in your relationship where things were just not clear enough for you guys to feel comfortable. And now you are in a situation where you've been through it a lot. You've been through a lot with this individual. You're not sure how you're just tired. You're just tired. It's not, you're not yet a burden, but you're just tired of, you're just tired of dealing with it. But at the same time, you're not ready to give up, because here you are in the future, really putting down the hard work and getting stuff done. Because when Taurus is your 7th house, so you're dedicated. When you're in something, you're in it. And as a fixed sign, that's a wonderful quality, because you don't throw in the towel until there's nothing left to actually work with. So I feel like you're working through the situation with the individual, and hopefully they're going to be giving you back that sort of same work. Now, back to the past here, we're going to look at the internal, external portions of each section. Now, the moon in the past, you guys had the Hangman. So internally, guys, emotionally, you guys this whole situation was pretty much set on hold, because there was a need for you to see something from a new perspective, from a different perspective. And this whole situation was very transformative, as it's telling me externally. It's changed you. It's changed you dramatically. I don't think you're the same person who was here in the present, right? There was a lot of darkness, and not necessarily that you were dealing with dark people or dark magic or anything like that, but there wasn't very clear-cut situations, or there's no clarity in the situations that you were in the past. And I feel like currently, this situation was a test, honestly, to see how much you've grown, how much you've changed, and how much you truly trust your intuition. Because I feel like with you trusting your intuition, which got you to here, which you're again tired, but you're getting very close to completion with this situation. I do sense that the new perspective possibly had a lot to do with how you saw yourself, with not really having the clarity. Potentially that maybe you were withholding something back emotionally. Maybe there wasn't a lot of communication at this time on your part in regards to how you felt about certain things. So things got a little bit crazy, I felt like. Again, this could also be that this individual that you're with wasn't very clear about how they were, and it put you in a state of limbo where you had to see a situation from different angles. You had to figure out how to communicate with them, or get them to communicate in a way that you can finally gain some sort of clarity, or gain some sort of anything, to be absolutely honest, because the moon It's not as, it's just so heavy with everything. It's like you're dealing with some serious intense energy. And with Scorpio, the Scorpionic energy here with it, it's very intense. So I feel like with the Hangman, again, you were just stuck in limbo. You have to see things from a different perspective. You had to use patience, and you really had to really be open to the situation where, one, it was extremely uncomfortable, and two, it was, because, like, think about it, right? When you're upside down, it's not comfortable, because all that blood rushes to your head, and you're like, ugh. So I feel like, honestly, with the moon, like, when the Hangman, you had to really wait on, you really had to sit there, you felt like you had to sit there, or see something internally, is change your perspective on something, possibly build some new boundaries, or see that there was a boundary that needed to be made because the situation was so intense. And that's what could possibly prompted you to change. There was a lot of change here. There was a lot of transformation, the things that you had to do to pretty much get out of your situation. Nothing bad, but something that's changed you. It changed your characters, changed the way you think. It's changed a lot. And this is again another very close ending to a cycle, but there's a serious change. So with this change here that's transformed you, I feel like it definitely led you to the Nine of Wands, where you are not necessarily thrilled about where you are, but you're also not ready to give up. You've put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. You really, honestly, the relationship in itself, not just you've changed, but the relationship and the dynamics has changed. So with all of that happening, right, with you changing the dynamic of the situation, because there's not a lot of clarity, there's not a lot of information going on, there's a lot of craziness going on with this moon, and intense emotions attached to it, you have this energy, you have this, extreme change and this new platform and this cycle that's, this starting, or this, restarting itself here, and you're already exhausted, you've already been through a lot, and now it's time to implement those situations. That's what it's looking like. It's like you've built a new platform with the relationship, and now it's implementation time. So I think that's possibly why you're not necessarily ready to give up on it yet, because you worked so hard to get to a place in the past with your relationship to where you guys can start really implementing some proper boundaries, some proper balance in the relationship. Because internally you guys have the Six of Pentacles. You guys are trying to level things out, making sure that things are properly handled. There's a good balance within your work and your home life. There's a good amount of communication potentially. And usually this card, isn't communication, it's Pentacles. This really could talk about money for some of you guys. But I get the sense that there is just this give and take necessity. Spending quality time, where you guys congregate, or where this individual that you guys are seeing, or this individual that you're with, that energy of really getting some balance going in the right directions and in the right spots of your relationship. Now, externally, you have the High Priestess. So this is interesting. There's some secrets. Honestly, you have some really alarming cards coming up here, because the Moon, the High Priestess, and the Seven of Swords is talking about somebody not being honest. Somebody's not being honest and not being very straightforward. There could be some lies that are coming up or being exposed, because the High Priestess's secrets is, what you can't see. It's the hidden knowledge. So for a lot of you guys, this could be that you guys are trying to gain some balance, right? You guys are trying to gain some sort of, equilibrium, but there are some secrets that are being exposed at this present time, or you guys are coming to realize that there are still some things that you're not noticing, or there's some things that you are not aware of because somebody is not being open about it. Somebody's not saying something. Someone's holding it back. Somebody is not being open with how they feel, or what they think, or what they're doing. Okay? And it's exhausting because you're still having to put in work and time and effort to build a relationship with somebody that's not being straight up or honest with you. Okay, so that's what it's looking like. you're dealing with an individual that's put you in a situation, potentially, or there's a situation here where there's secrets, there's no honesty, there's no clarity, there's nothing. And then you have to sit here and figure out what is going on what, what perspective did you need to take, or what you need to take, what steps you need to take, what do you need to see from the moon, which is totally unclear anyway, to get you to change your platform of the relationship for the better. And now, this change, this whatever you've implemented in the relationship is now put you in a situation where you're defensive, and you're now seeing that this person is possibly not trustworthy. So you're having to rely on your intuition right now again, and you should always rely on your intuition, right? Your intuition will never fail you. It will never lie to you and never deceive you at all. But I feel like what your intuition is saying here is that you have to look at why your back is up. Why are you defensive, Scorpio? And if it's because the individual that you're with is not being honest with you, then it's time to really start figuring out, right, what it is that's keeping them from being open with you. Or maybe you don't feel like you are able to be open with this individual because they are not trustworthy with what information that you give them. Maybe there was some sort of exposure, or some sort of... the moon doesn't show exposure. The moon is more of darkness and, hiding, and things can be seen, unclarity, confusion. So, miscommunication and everything like that could definitely happen in the moon, with the moon here, but you still feel a little bit defensive in regards to some sort of information. Or there's some sort of defensive energy in the relationship that's keeping you guys from actually seeing the truth, or being open to exposing what's being hidden now. So this which leads us to the future, where there is work that needs to be done, some serious work and concentration to really be able to come out and communicate in the ways that does speak honesty. Now this one here internally, it could be that you're taking a risk working very hard and working very diligently to make this relationship work, right? Really trying to be honest and go outside of your way and be open with the individual. Because speaking your truth is hard to do, especially if somebody has been lying to you, or they have been very aggressive, or they haven't been fair in the past, okay? But I'd have no idea who's not saying, or who's not being honest, who's not being open. So in regards to this, there is a lot of work that's being done, potentially, that needs to be done in the future to overcome sort of lies or deception here, because there is some deception that's going on. You have big alarming cards to show that, hey, something is not right, something is not being said, somebody's not saying what they need to say. There is some dishonesty here. I don't see any cheating cards, I don't see any third parties, but I don't see that there's some information that's being properly and truly expressed here, and that's annoying. So you guys could be dealing with individuals internally where you feel like you're not really being honest to, being honest, or somebody's not being honest to you, rather. You're not getting honest information, or just ultimately there's somebody in the relationship that's just not being honest, okay? And it could just, and here externally you have the Ace of Swords, which just talks about clarity. It's the very opposite of the Seven of Swords, in my opinion, because this is about sneaking away, avoiding situations. And I feel like for a lot of you guys, maybe for Scorpios, maybe some of you guys in your situation, there's something that you are really, you have to really work on, but you don't want to really deal with it. It's honestly, it's a lot more trouble than it's worth potentially for a lot of you guys, and you may want to avoid it. Maybe emotionally, you're trying to avoid your emotions. Okay, maybe you're trying to avoid your emotions at this time for some of you. But there's some dishonesty here, and it just needs to come to light, because externally, the truth is what's going to reign supreme. It's what's going to shine brightest. And I feel like that's what what the work is here for, to work on what's being exposed, to work on what needs to happen, what needs to be said. Because there is some indication here that there's not some honesty coming up. It's kind of hard to work on a relationship, right? I'm sure you guys are figuring this out. It's hard to work on a relationship because currently you guys have the Nine of Wands here that doesn't communicate the truth when it needs to be And it doesn't, and it could be for small things and for petty things. You may have even found someone else in a lie. Honestly, that's why the moon could be here in the past with major stuff. It could be that you've overcome some dishonesty in the past, or some shadow work in the past, that you've recognized that there were some things that were going on, or there was some sort of, there were some things going on in the dark, and there was some sort of clarity with that. There was some sort of, perspective that you've gained, or someone you gained in the relationship, to change and honestly ultimately change the dynamic of the relationship. But there's something happening again with that. Something not being shown, something being hidden. So the advice for that one, guys, honestly, it's coming after this, is really trust your intuition. You've had a situation here in the past where it was truly reliant on your intuition, and you have to trust yourself this time, especially if there's an individual that you're having a hard time trusting. And if you're having a hard time trusting, relationship is all about trust. If you don't have trust, then there is no relationship. You have to rebuild it, and that individual may have to really work on rebuilding it with you. And that's where the dynamic of the balancing comes in. Making sure you're doing your part of being honest, and then making sure they do their part of being honest. Because if you have your truth aligned already, if you're already doing what you need to do in the relationship, doing your 50, then the other person, you can figure out what's going on by them flaking on their 50%. But you have to trust your intuition, Scorpio. Wow, slow down. When you are excited, you get ahead of yourself. Take some time to allow things to unfold. And I don't think it's necessarily excitement that the card is pretty much talking about. What I think it's saying is that take a second to really look at things from all situations, from all angles. Because there's like I said, there's somebody not being honest, someone that's not saying what they need to say. There's something that's being kept a secret. And as long as there's effort being put into the relationship, or actions that are being done, you may be missing some sort of hidden messages, or some sort of signs that could be indicating to you that there's something that could be going on that could pretty much keep hindering the relationship from blossoming. Okay. Jesus, Scorpio. That's a hard one, but I do see success. It just all comes down to being honest and just standing by your truth. Right, Scorpio? Like, you have to do what you have to do. You have, you doing your thing, you doing your 50, you speaking your truth, but the individual that you may be dealing with just may not be honest with you. I don't see a third party, like I said, but what I do see is that someone's not being straight up. And I can't say that this is for all Scorpios. This could be for some Scorpios too out there that may not be very honest with how they feel, or what's going on in the relationship for them, right? There could be some dishonesty. And there could be developed dishonesty because of defensiveness from the past situation that was so heavy and so deep. But I don't feel this way for all of them. I feel like this is just for the select few that could be, that could be just not saying what they need to say. For those, some Scorpios may not be saying what they need to say, but for a lot of you Scorpios, you're dealing with an individual who's not trying to. I'm not saying they're not trying. I can't say that because the 9 of Wands here. This could be both of you guys in the relationship, but ultimately, I just feel like there's still some lies, there's still some secrets, and it's because of fear. Ultimately, fear of something, fear of rejection. I don't have any rejection cards here to even say that. I have no idea why they're afraid, but there is some fear here that's keeping them going with the lies, with the untruthfulness, with the deceitfulness. And I don't think they're coming from an evil place. I just think there may be some fears that keep them from being open in the first place, and that's the part that needs to be worked on. Why are you still being deceitful?